Hi, I'm Christina and today I'm going to be looking at the Orwell Prize for Political Fiction 2023 shortlist. So I started following this prize last year and I read two brilliant books from that shortlist. I read The High House by Jessie Greengrass and Assembly by Natasha and I gave them both 5 stars, and The High House was actually my absolute favourite book of 2022. So I'm very much looking forward to following the prize this year too. And I actually have the winner from last year, Small Things Like These by Keegan, on my TBR. I found it in a charity shop recently, so I'm very much looking forward to reading that one too. So let's just get straight into the shortlist for this year. So I haven't looked yet, so this is going to be a completely new reaction. Going to have a little look if I've heard of any of these books and then do a little bit of a deep dive and see what they're about, see which ones I fancy reading and just kind of building my TBR. So let's get started. Okay, so I have heard of one of these books and that is Demon Copperhead. That one has actually been shortlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction this year too, and I know that one is a retelling of David Copperfield. And then just having another look, I haven't heard of the book itself, but I've heard of the author, and I actually have one of their other books out from the library right now. So that is Small Worlds, and I have Open Water out from the library. I think I picked it up just like 2 days ago, and the reason I did so is because one of you commented on one of my videos that you think I might like it, and that was actually on the Assembly by Natasha book review one, and she was also on this shortlist last year. So that's very full circle. So the newer book is also on this one. Okay, so I've heard of one of them properly, and then I've heard of the author of the other one, but all of the others completely brand new to me, haven't heard of the books, haven't heard of the author. So I'm just going to go from the start. So the one at the start is Small Worlds, which is the one who is the author also of Open Water. So let's see. And this is by Caleb Azumah Nelson. So, dancing is the one thing that can solve Stephen's problems. At church with his family, the shimmer of black hands raised in praise, with his band making music speaking not just to their hardships but their joys. Grooving with his best friends so close their heads might touch, dancing alone to his father's records and covering parts of a man he has never truly known, his youth, shame and sacrifice. Stephen has only ever known himself in song, but what becomes of him when the music fades? Set over the course of 3 summers, from South London to Ghana and back again, Small Worlds is a novel about the worlds we build for ourselves, the worlds we live, dance and love within. That one sounds good. 3 summers, so kind of like a short time span, which I like. Set in South London and Ghana, so we're seeing a little bit of the world. Okay, I'm going to read this quote as well because it looks interesting. So it's a beautifully written and joyous account of Black British lives in the early 2010s. Set largely in Peckham and Ghana over the course of 3 summers, the protagonist Stephen navigates love, family and community. And also looking at a poignant account of a father and son relationship. Abundantly talented photographer. This second novel by him confirms he's equally talented with words. Oh, okay, so Open Water must have been his first novel, his debut novel. I didn't know it was his debut, even though I have it out from the library, didn't know that. So this is his second novel, interesting. Okay, so I'm gonna keep my eye on that one, but I think I should probably read his debut novel first, considering I have it out from the library right now. Okay, moving on to the next one. So this one is called Birnam Wood by Eleanor Catton. So Birnam Wood is on the move. 5 years ago, Myra Bunting founded a guerrilla gardening group, Birnam Wood, an undeclared, unregulated, sometimes criminal, sometimes philanthropic gathering of friends. This activist collective plants crops where no one will notice, on the sides of roads, in forgotten parks and neglected backyards. So maybe kind of climate fiction if we're thinking about gardening, potentially. For years, the group has struggled to break even. Then Mira stumbles on an answer, a way to finally set the group up for the long term. A landslide has closed, cutting off the town. Natural disaster has created an opportunity, a sizable farm seemingly abandoned. Okay, but someone else is interested in the land who is an American billionaire. He snatched it up to build his end of times bunker, or so he tells her. And then she suggests they work the land. But can they trust him? Okay, are their ideals and ideologies tested? It's a gripping psychological thriller. Okay, I wasn't expecting it to be a psychological thriller. I completely misread that genre. Interesting. Oh, from the Booker Prize winning author of The Luminaries. It's the same author. Brilliantly constructed consideration of intentions, actions and consequences. An unflinching examination of the human impulse to ensure our own survival. Well, that one sounds really intriguing. I did not guess it was a psychological thriller. Definitely interested in that one. Okay, so Eleanor Catton is best known for her Booker winner, The Luminaries. It's bad I actually haven't heard of that book, but obviously if it won the Booker Prize, written something very different, in my view, far more fun in Burnham Wood. At the heart of this eco-thriller, okay, so it is kind of climate change fiction, eco-thriller is guerrilla gardening collective Burnham Wood, led by Myra Bunting and her quest for radical, widespread and lasting social change. Will she get it by entering into a deal with American tech billionaire? It's hugely entertaining to watch the clash between the collective and the capitalism play out in this intelligent, gripping, immensely entertaining novel. And what an ending. That one sounds really good. I'm gonna definitely, it's gonna be so difficult to build a TBR because I know last year I was interested in reading all of them, but quite a few of them weren't at the library, so I tried to read the ones that were first, and I'm definitely gonna go back and read some more from last year because it looked like a really good shortlist. Okay, the next one is called Bournville by Jonathan Coe. So this is about the chocolate. When I read that, I wondered if it was about Bournville chocolate, and it is. So in Bournville, a placid suburb of Birmingham, sits a famous chocolate factory. For 11-year-old Mary and her family in 1945, it's the centre of the world. I already like the sound of this one. This one sounds lovely. Okay, so the reason their streets smell faintly of chocolate, the place where most of their friends and neighbours have worked for decades, Mary will go on to live through the coronation and the World Cup final, royal weddings and royal funerals, Brexit and COVID-19. So this is spanning like decades. Okay. She'll have children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Parts of the chocolate factory will be transformed into a theme park as modern life and the city crowd in on their peaceful enclave. As we travel through 75 years of social change, that is quite a span. That's good. From James Bond to Princess Diana, and from wartime nostalgia to the World Wide Web, one pressing question starts to emerge. Will these changing times bring Mary's family and their country closer together or leave them more adrift and divided than ever before? Bournville is a rich and poignant new novel from the best-selling Costa Award-winning author of Middle England. Okay, I have heard of that one. It's the story of a woman, of a nation's love affair with chocolate, and of Britain itself. Okay, so let's see this little quote. So Jonathan Coe has been writing State of the Nation novels for 30 years. His latest Bournville is set over 4 generations in one family in Birmingham. Oh, I like that it's a generational story. Takes in Queen Elizabeth II's coronation, the 1966 World Cup final, Princess Diana and James Bond, Brexit and COVID. It's moving and it's funny, but it's also a fascinating account of post-war Britain. Great. That one sounds really good. I really like how British it sounds as well. That one sounds really good. So the next one on the list is called The New Life by Tom Crewe. Let's have a little look at what this one is about. So this one is set in London in 1894, so it's historical fiction. After a lifetime navigating his desires, John has found a man who returns his feelings. Meanwhile, Henry is sure that his unconventional marriage will bring freedom. A shared vision for the future brings John and Henry together to write a revolutionary book in defiance of convention and the law. Their daring book threatens to throw John and Henry and all those around them into danger. How far should they go to win personal freedom, and how high a price are they willing to pay for a new way of living? That one sounds really interesting. So kind of historical fiction and maybe a little bit of romance as well. Okay, the next one. A House for Alice by Diana Evans. Okay. After 50 years in the wilderness of London, Alice wants to live out her days in the land of her birth. but her children are divided on whether she stays or goes. In the wake of their father's death, the imagined stability of the family begins to fray. Meanwhile, youngest daughter Melissa has never let go of the love she lost, and Michael, in return, even within the sturdy walls of his marriage to the sparkling Nicole, is haunted by the failed perfection of the past. So this one sounds like it's really focused on family dynamics, and I really like the sound of that. As Alice's final decision draws closer, all that's hidden between Melissa and her sisters, Michael and Nicole, rises to the surface. Set against the shadows of a city and a country in turmoil, Diana Evans' ordinary people confront fundamental questions. How should we raise our children? How to do right by our parents? And how in the midst of everything can we satisfy ourselves? Okay, that sounds interesting. Let's see. Let's look at the little quote. I've liked these little quotes. I'm going to keep reading them. London burns, then simmers in Diana Evans' eloquent and engaging fourth novel. Okay, so she's written a few before. Oh, it's including the Grenfell disaster, frames a family story in which incendiary dangers past and present threaten lives and hopes. Evans' cast of mainly black Londoners, some shared with her previous ordinary people, now pursue their dreams of homecoming, fulfilment and escape in a more hostile or simply confused environment. Public events intrude on struggles to belong, to transform or to break free. Oh, that sounds good. I haven't read anything that's got the Grenfell disaster in it, so I think that sounds really interesting. Definitely see why it's on the Political Prize for Fiction. So just 3 more to go. I'm going to speed up a little bit. So The Story of the Forest by Linda Grant. Let's see, this one has a really pretty fun cover, just as an aside. So this one's set in 1913, so another historical fiction. So a young, carefree and recklessly innocent girl, Mina, goes out into the forest at the edge of the Baltic Sea and meets a gang of rowdy young men with revolution on their minds. It sounds like a fairy tale, but it's life. This one sounds intriguing. The adventure leads to flight, emigration and a new land, a new language and the pursuit of idealism or happiness in Liverpool. But what are the stories from the old country? How do they shape and form the next generations who've heard them well-worn tales? From the flour mills of Latvia to Liverpool, suburbia, to post-war Soho, the story of the forest is about myths and memory and about how families adapt in order to survive. It's a story full of the humour and wisdom we've come to relish from this wonderful writer. That one sounds really good too. Okay. Am I going to read the quote? Because I'm taking a long time here. I might skip the quotes. Let's have a little look. So I'm gonna skip the quotes. I'm gonna speed it up, but that one sounds good. Okay, 2 to go. So the next one is Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver, and that's the one that's on the Women's Prize for Fiction shortlist too, the David Copperfield retelling. So this is a once-in-a-generation novel that breaks and mends your heart in the way only the best fiction can. Demon's story begins with his traumatic birth to a single mother in a single wide trailer looking like a little blue prize fighter. For the life ahead of him, he would need all of that fighting spirit along with buckets of charm, a quick wit and some unexpected talents, legal and otherwise. So it's set in Virginia. Poverty isn't an idea, it's as natural as the grass grows. For a generation growing up in this world, at the heart of the modern opioid crisis, addiction isn't an abstraction, it's neighbours, parents and friends. Family could mean love or reluctant foster care. For Demon, born on the wrong side of luck, the affection and safety he craves is as remote as the ocean he dreams of seeing one day. The wonder is in how far he's willing to travel to try and get there. Okay. So it's an epic tale of love, loss, and everything in between. So I wasn't particularly interested in reading this one when it was on the Women's Prize for Fiction, and that's just purely because I generally don't read retellings. Obviously it's a retelling of David Copperfield, but as it's now also on the Orwell Prize for Political Fiction, maybe I should just sit up and take note that it might be a really good book, so I might have to make an exception to my, well, it's not a rule, it's just a tendency of mine, so we'll see. Okay, so the final book on the list is called After Sappho by Selby, Wynn, Schwartz. Okay. So this is another historical fiction book. There's been quite a lot on this one. So it's set in 1895. Okay, amid laundry and bruises, Rena gives birth to the child of the man who raped her. Oh wow, this sounds dark. And who she's also been forced to marry. Unbroken, she determines to change her name and her life alongside it. Then also in 1902, we follow someone else called Romaine, and she's sailing for Capri. She has barely enough money for the ferry, nothing for lunch, her paintbrushes are bold and clotted, but she's sure she can sell a painting and is fervent in her belief that the island is detached from all fates she's previously suffered. And then also in 1923, we have Virginia Woolf writing this, so told in a series of cascading vignettes featuring a multitude of voices. So this is the reimagining of the lives of a brilliant group of feminists, saphists, artists and writers in the late 19th and early 20th century as they battle for control over their lives, for liberation and for justice. That sounds really intriguing. That sounds like completely different from anything I've ever read before too. Wow, okay. So a decent, but it sounds dark as well. The first character study sounds dark. Okay, so that was the 8 books on the shortlist. If you have read any of these books, I would love to know your thoughts down in the comments below. And if there's any here that you're now interested in reading, definitely let me know that too. I'm just going to quickly kind of build a TBR, and I think the ones I would like to prioritise are Small Worlds, the one that I also have the other book, I have Open Water, so I should probably read that first. But yeah, interested in that one, by Caleb Azumah Nelson. And then Burnham Wood sounded excellent, the psychological thriller. I just wasn't expecting a psychological thriller to be on this list. And that is by Eleanor Catton, so those two are priorities. Bournville, the chocolate one, by Jonathan Coe, definitely, that one's also a priority. That just sounds so lovely in a way. A bit of historical fiction, and yeah, I like the fact that we're travelling through different decades and covering so many kind of massive moments in British history. That one sounds really good. Let's see which other ones really grab me, because at the moment I've just picked all of them. I'm gonna have to narrow it down a little bit. What was A House for Alice? Let me go back again. The Story of the Forest also sounded really good, didn't it? Yeah, that's the one between Latvia and Liverpool. Right, yeah, so I think the ones for me that are now a priority are Small Worlds by Caleb Azumah Nelson, Birnam Wood by Eleanor Catton, Bournville by Jonathan Coe, and The Story of the Forest by Linda Grant. So I think those 4 I'm gonna prioritise, see if my library has them, and then we can go from there, and I can look at the other 4 in the future. I need to be realistic because I don't read all that fast. So yeah, so thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please do like it. And if you'd like to see more of me talking about books, please do subscribe. And hopefully I will like some of these and have book reviews up for you too. All right then, I'll see you in my next one.